This is day 5 of the September 92 7-day retreat at Springwater. Here are more questions. What is separation? I noticed at one point when a feeling of sadness arose that I immediately didn't want to feel that. At that moment, it sort of dawned on me that that may be separation. A surge of sadness arising, or what afterwards one may label as sadness, and the immediate reaction, immediate resistance to feeling it. And then it dawned on me, says the person, that this may be separation. I think it would be good in talks or in meetings, in a group or individually, if we could be as direct from our own experience as we could be. We can so easily quote what religious writers or teachers have said about separation, what the scriptures tell us. And these may be very lucid descriptions. So lucid that one takes the lucidity of one's memory of it or one's quoting it for a direct insight. But what we're trying to do here is to not quote, not read scriptures. What the ancients have said, or the contemporary wise guys. I didn't mean to say that, it just came out. But to look for ourselves, is that possible? Like when somebody says, what is separation? We don't immediately give an answer of what we know, have learned, remember, having read, or it's so clear, the description is so clear that somebody else has given. But to really let that question sink in, yes, what is separation? Do I feel separate? One may be so used to it, one doesn't even think of it in those terms. But most people who come to these retreats, they have a very acute feeling of separation, understand what that is from experience. And then to wonder, what makes it? What makes for this feeling of separation? Not take it for granted. This is human nature, this is how we live. Being human beings, all different, obviously we're separate. But to watch it, like one person says, a surge of pain arose, and immediately the resistance not to feel it. Where the resistance goes, some kind of memory, watch out, don't do it. It'll get worse. It's not that lucidly spelled out, but there wouldn't be any resistance if there wasn't a fear. of coming in touch with what's there. And through the resistance, I don't want to feel this, some kind of repressive movement, controlling movement of the body-mind, which has that ability not to feel, to suppress feelings, to suppress thoughts. A dawning, is this what I mean by living in separation? The memory comes to mind right now. In one of the first retreats I went to was a Zen retreat, having incredible pain in the back, which was always aching anyways, wondering whether I would survive even the 2 days that I had signed up for. And longing for the bell to ring, which one may be familiar even with the 25 minutes. It becomes very painful at times. And then there was a wondering whether, first of all, remembering this back pain, knowing what it was from many, many previous back pains, and how back pain doesn't get better by sitting more. Sitting in chairs, I hadn't done this kind of sitting. A real fear of what this would lead to. Thinking about it, worrying about it, and waiting for the bell for relief, because it always turned out when one got up, the pain was gone. So just like with this person, about the sadness, it dawned that this whole thinking about the pain and waiting for the bell, was that the separation? No, that was the separation. Because at this moment, not thinking about the pain, but just there being that, without knowing what it was, has also occurred that all I thought about was what I knew about it, but this thing was something that hadn't happened before, it was there now. What really was it? And a merging or a non-separating, and something shifted. The pain wasn't what it had been before, when it was thought about and feared and worried about, and this longing for time to go. An absence of spaciousness, patience, not worrying about time, just being with what is. And in that there was no feeling of separation. Later, when it was said time and time again, you have to get one with your pain, that was the way it was put, I felt there was something not to the point in putting it this way. Because it didn't feel as there was someone getting to be one with something else. There was just what was. If I didn't think about myself having this, and didn't support the idea of myself suffering this pain, but just it's being there, not resisting it. Not thinking of, I have it, and in order for me to get rid of it, I have to become one with it. It's all more thinking and more reinforcing of this notion of a separate sufferer, separate endurer, or just plain haver of this pain, which is fallacious. There's just what's going on. Whatever's going on in the back or in the stomach. We may call it fear, but it's not fear that's going on in the stomach. It's something else. It's not a word. It's not a memory. not an idea. The idea may have triggered it, but what's going on now is what is going on, together with the song of the insects and wind, rustling of leaves and people breathing, the breath coming and going here, sunlight, sweat. If language and habit says, I have all this, I hear all this, then there's the I, the separate self. There's no thinking about this, just the experiencing of it. And I don't mean controlling the thinking. Then there's a controller, and the thought I should control my thinking, which perpetuates the notion of an I with its willpower, either with its willpower to change things or with its passivity to suffer things. Does this still sound very intellectual? It isn't meant to be just intellectual, even though the words sound that way and can be comprehended this way. And it's all right to understand something intellectually. We've said that before. It may put into question other notions about oneself. But it's given to each one of us. Each one of us has this possibility of experiencing and seeing directly, immediately, without any need to turn away or resist. It's just habit, an idea. I can't do it, I can't stand it. So in one's moment-to-moment living, can one come upon this feeling of separation and question it immediately as one comes upon it? What is going on in the mind, in the body, that keeps this going? And does it have to be kept going? To put it all into question, not have the answers. They come on their own. Actually, another incident in my life comes to memory now. That was at least 8 years before starting Zen training, even knowing about it or reading about it. Long before then, once taking a Sunday afternoon drive with my husband. We had just adopted a tiny baby boy. I don't think the weather was very good. We were just driving. We often did this. It was, to me, it's usually a depressive thing, these Sunday afternoon drives into the country. I didn't quite know why, but that afternoon, it became very powerfully painful. An acute feeling of separation. We were driving through these meadows, maybe a season like this, very hazy, very humid and hot. No, it couldn't have been hot because he was born in December. It was not sunny and bright. It was dim, probably because I felt so dim. Meadows and tree lines in the background, and driving and looking out, and this acute pain of separation. I think I even labeled it that way at the time. Talked to Kyle about this, feeling so pained, almost panicky. Not being part of that. wanting, yearning for a relationship with the meadows and the trees, and what we were driving through, and there being none. It's almost like a mental and physical crisis. And after that, starting to read voraciously. Sort of like a self-help thing to read, to find out more about myself. Reading all the psychology books that we had never read in school because the psychology there was behavioristic. Just reading and learning, not amazingly, without any intention. It just happened that we're not getting stuck with any particular thing until I got to Zen training. Got stuck for a while. Although it didn't feel like stuckness in the beginning at all. It was very, very liberating to be able to sit quietly, as quiet as it was in a retreat. It wasn't very quiet. So questions like this are not just, let me get an answer. They are very powerful forces to wonder. And in the wondering, to become more aware, more open to what's actually happening. One person this morning said something like, what we're doing here is watching the mind. But that's far too limited a way of putting it. Maybe I've put it this way myself in the past. I don't know whether I still say that. It's not just watching the mind, it's watching everything. Of course, the mind ultimately is everything, if this is our understanding of mind. But let's not go into philosophy. Just to watch what's happening. The crisis, the pain, the feelings, the thoughts, the questions. All what's going on inside and out. How our moods affect what we perceive in ourselves and others and in the landscape. And keep looking, keep listening quietly. Not always just burrowing or plumbing for an answer. Just a question is alive, but the sitting can be very quiet. Quietly alive. Not looking for something in particular. It's when one person asked me several times, well, what am I supposed to attend to? Just give me one thing, but there is not one thing, it's only attention. Let appear what's there in this attention. But the moment you attend to something and make that into a practice, then the channel is established and the world is kept out, the wholeness of this life. And he said, well, I can't attend to everything at the same time. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? One person says, it's possible. The wind, the creaking of a chair, the gesticulating arms and hands and voice, and breathing, tremendous rustling, it's all there, isn't it? And the cicadas. And someone else says, no, I can only attend to one thing at a time. Then why? Let's investigate it. What's going on? Is the mind saying, listen to the wind? already the injunction, listen, the label, wind, and then comes further comment, am I doing it right? Am I doing as well as so-and-so? Or can I listen to the wind and at the same time to the breathing? Language, words, thinking separates one thing from another. That's its very quality. Thinking itself, no thought is the whole thing. It is a partial thing. Can only grasp partially. And this is what is going on when we say, then there's not really attention. There's a directed thought and then listening to this thing and trying to keep it there by shutting out other things. Concentration, we call it. So, if you feel I can only listen to one thing at a time, just listen to what's going on at the same time of hearing this one thing. All the words and injunctions and comments. And not say they shouldn't happen, but become aware of them as an interesting fact which divides what is actually undivided. So can there be a moment of attending without knowing what to attend to, without knowing what anything or everything is really? In one of the meetings, there was a lot of discussion about thought and thinking. I'll read all these different things that I remembered. An important question for me is, why do thoughts start up? The person was particularly referring to entangling thoughts. Why do they start up? Can I catch the starting of thoughts before I'm carried away by them? I think it's in the very nature of being carried away that one didn't catch it. A thought which immediately connects with deep emotions, memories, fears, self-concern, worry. It just catches. And if there was a space before, it's gone. Now there is this narrow capsule of involvement in thought. When the mind is open and relatively quiet, not involved with catching thoughts. If a thought arises and is seen instantly, it doesn't become a catching thought. It's just seen and it's finished. It doesn't connect. Or create a narrow space. So, person later wrote me a note and says, I've given up this exercise, it's futile. How can the mind catch thoughts? It's thoughts itself, or something like what the note said. I see the futility of this. A thought arising or a self-image can be seen and that's it. But when we get involved in something, we get involved. And then there's very little attention to anything else, sometimes none. And then maybe there's a waking up to this involvement again. A moment of waking up, a moment of attention. And then what? Sometimes the involvement in what was going on is so strong, it rolls right on, right over the moment of attention. It's buried, like with a landslide of emotive or worried or angry thinking. Or else a moment of attention which happens to us ever so often during the day, a moment of attending, being aware. Then recriminations about having gotten involved in separating thoughts, particularly in a retreat. One may have this goal of keeping this mind pure of thoughts, and waking up to involvement in thoughts, there's a ready recrimination or blame for being caught up in thoughts again, which is a new caught upness in thoughts, isn't it? As we said at the very outset, I think in the evening opening talk, I don't see this place as one for fighting or clearing away or controlling thoughts, but to become intimate with it, aware of what it is that is going on in this mind and body and in our relationship with each other and with nature, with our ideas. Not to set the goal of a clear, thought-free mind. One sets oneself up for a lot of despair and disappointment and frustration and comparison, and then maybe finally throw this whole thing out. But at a moment of coming to see at a glance, what is it that I get so involved in? To look at it with an interest. That's different from saying I mustn't think or to be intimate, familiar with what it is that the mind and body are concerned and wrapped up in. It's helpful to find out. We know so little about ourselves. Because we have so many ideas of the way we are. We talked about that yesterday. Someone said, I'm interested in what is my relationship to thoughts. I used to get frustrated by constant thinking, but then I just wanted to be friendly with my thoughts. Sort of some kind of a resolution, person said, made at the beginning. This time, none of this fighting and getting frustrated over, just be friendly with them. What does that mean? No condemnation. No harshness, no recriminations. Just, oh, hello, how are you? I guess be careful that one isn't in a new thought trap, a new image of my friendliness with my thoughts. Wow, this. Because we're also trying to find out what is that I that has these thoughts. And that was the next question somebody asked. Is there a thinker of thoughts? Everybody sort of fell silent for a while. What is the thinker? Is there some thinker within me? And if so, all right, let me find him or her. Or the I that wants to be friendly with the thoughts. What is that I? Is that another thought? That there is an I or a thinker separate from thoughts? In that stream of thoughts that manifests in us human beings. There are some very powerful thoughts that say, I have these thoughts, or I am the thinker of these thoughts. Right now, if we're wondering, is there a thinker? That's a thought, isn't it? That there is a thinker at this moment. There may be something real there, but at this moment it's just a thought. Or is it different for you? Some vague notion that there's something. Well, where does thought come from? If there is no thinker. Because if there's a thinker, I don't have to look at it. I know there's a thinker that thinks thoughts. And I leave it at that. But if I wonder about it, wonder whether the thinker itself is a thought. Because right now, that's what it is, isn't it? Where do the thoughts come from? If I question that they come from a thinker, I don't say yes or no, but I question it. I'm not taking it for a fact, because I've never found that thinker. So where do the thoughts come from? All of us right now can think of the place we live. I can think of the little white house that we moved into. You can think of whatever house, apartment, room you live. Because you remember it. Because there is a memory of it. Think of my family, think of my father and mother who died. Can think about all kinds of things because there's memory. Can speak this English language because there's memory of it. Talk about trees and wind because there's knowledge, which is memory of those words and what trees and the wind look like. I can see them in my imagination right now. There's also, somebody brought this up this morning, there's also creative thought. Person said, I can create things that I've never thought of before. As a writer, a painter can imagine forms that don't exist, maybe. Maybe they do someplace there. Memory is vaster than we think. But certainly everything in this house, including the house itself, is a product of some kind of thought, with a lot of memory, some of it creative thinking. Creating something out of imagination. Where does that imagination come from? From an imaginer? If that's how one feels, will one find out whether this is so? I've never found one, but I don't want to influence you. It's just what's going on. Stream of thought, fancy, fantasy, imagination, creative imagination. It's a stream manifesting in each one of us. And often very similar thoughts manifesting in people of the same culture or civilization, time, social group, ethnic group. One person in the group said, "Why do we seem to be so concerned about having thoughts? I used to be too, and get very frustrated trying to clear them away, be free of thoughts, battling them, struggling with them. Now I don't. And I really begin enjoying retreats. Let thoughts come and go." Person said that I sit and there are too many thoughts, I get up and take a walk. One person put it this way: can thoughts just be peripheral? They're there and yet they don't disturb an openness of being here. There are thoughts going on right now, aren't there? We're thinking together, and yet the wind is there, isn't it? Feeling of a breeze stroking the skin. One person said, "I find thinking is rather dead. When I find myself involved and absorbed in thoughts, there's a certain deadness about this. Being present is much more alive with the senses open. Feels much more alive than being involved in thoughts about things. And because I have found this to be so, the aliveness of being there, being here with the senses open and sensitive, I've sort of made a decision. This is how I want to live. I don't want to live in thoughts and the deadness of it for the rest of my life." And asking this person, "Has it helped to have made this decision?" She said, "Yes, it has." It's clear, isn't it, right now, if one were to go into a memory track of how does wind happen, and try to remember, maybe one has taken meteorology in school, how the earth turns and whatever all causes wind, and try to remember this and put it accurately, and new questions evolving about wind. And there is no wind. It happens to be so. What I meant to say is, it's different from just listening, isn't it? It's a different kind of pursuit. We're not saying one is better than the other, but one person decided, this is how I want to live, open with the senses to what's happening, and not involved in thought about things. Very famous Zen story comes to mind where the monks are quarreling over what is moving the flag. Is the wind moving the flag? What was the other one? Was the flag moving by itself? Well, how was it? Watching it. Huh?
Wind or flag?
Yeah, but what was the conundrum?
Is it the wind moving or is it the flag moving?
All right, there you are. Arguing, is it the wind moving or is it the flag moving? And then somebody passing by and saying, it's your mind that's moving. Thought is moving. Trying to resolve through thinking and logic and knowledge, argumentation. By which I'm not condemning or saying anything bad about scientific inquiry. It has its place. We wouldn't be able to so much more accurately predict weather for whatever good it does us if we hadn't thought of a satellite to float around there, to take pictures of, incredible pictures of the Earth at a distance. These pictures in themselves are poetry, aren't they? One Earth with blue and white and brown and ochre. If we got far enough away from it, would separation end? When sitting and not much is going on, just breathing and sweating, I wonder, is that all? And sometimes a despair sets in. I used to look for satisfaction on the outside activities, and really didn't find any there. Now, doing a lot of sitting and quietness, staying quiet, going to retreats and so forth, there is still wanting more than just sitting and breathing and sweating. Is that an inbuilt drive into this organism, built into the DNA, to want more or to want something different? Because the organism gets used to things. Why do we get used to things? Why do we get used to a beautiful landscape, to good food, to quietness, to excitement? We get used to everything. It happens, doesn't it? There must be mechanisms for it, which I'm not knowledgeable about, but it is a fact that no matter how good we feel or rotten we feel, how exciting things are, how beautiful the place, there is setting in so quickly a getting used to itness. As though we needed the contrast to begin feeling again. Need contrast to a lot of noise and turmoil to appreciate the quiet. And maybe need the quiet to appreciate for at least a moment the turmoil and noise, the stimulation of the organism. think a very good question would be, is it possible not to get used to things? To experience what is going on freshly for moments at a time. To see the landscape anew, experience oneself freshly, experience each other anew. Running counter to this tremendously, deeply programmed conditioning of getting used to things. Habituation. It's another word. But the fact is known to us, isn't it? And it's partly out of that, I won't say completely, I haven't thought about the whole thing or looked at it completely, but partly out of this comes the wanting more. If one had been just imagining right now, having run for one's life from some danger, and having left the danger far behind, and finding a spot where one can sit down and just breathe and sweat. Would any question arise, is there more? Wouldn't that be totally sufficient to just be alive and breathe and sweat? Free from danger? Because in the just being what is, openly, non-resistingly, not used to it, there are no boundaries. No worries, no fears, no wanting more or wanting less, no wanting. Because everything is what it is. It's not sufficient, that's a concept again. It's just breathing and sweating and wind blowing, heart beating and breath flowing. People here together, listening together, airplanes and crickets. Not worrying, does she like me? Does he approve of me? This is all in abeyance right now. It's not needed. Because this world is vast and wide. We will end here for today.